Welcome to Every Step Podcast. I'm Christina Weston.
And I'm Judith Beck.
Every Step is the podcast where career and life meet.
Hi, Christina. Another episode of Headspace Havoc today. And as usual, there are a few subjects that have been doing my head in the last 2 weeks.
There's been a lot going on. A lot going on in the media to do a lot of people's head in, I suspect.
Well, the first one, and you know, last time we talked about the Olympics. Well, now the Olympics are over, but Reagan, she continues on. God bless her. I tell you what, I was sort of on the fence of this a little bit. First, I laughed, then I got annoyed, then I got supportive, and then I got annoyed again. and I thought, okay, at the end of the day, she got in. She gave it a go. It's not her issue. It's really the selection committee's issue.
Yeah. Why is everybody talking about? I have had phone calls. I've been in conference calls with people who are in the US, and they're saying to me, what do you make of the Reagan thing? So she didn't even win a medal, right? She
didn't even get a point.
She didn't even get a point. Usually those people disappear. But no, nobody knows the gold medal winner's name. No one knows silver. No one knows the bronze medal person's name. Everybody's talking about the person that didn't get a point.
I got so many texts from my friends in the States going, is this for real? Was this a joke? And then they got, she's like Elaine Bennis on Seinfeld, you know, the one with Elaine Bennis dancing. Don't even get me started on that green tracksuit. But, it's kind of like, oh my God. But again, the selection committee. And then why there are better breakdancers in Australia, I am sure.
But she went to an Oceania competition and she was selected.
She won fair. Yep, she won fair and square. She might be a little delusional about how good she is, but hey, why not give it a go? The girl's going to make a fortune now because
if she can, good on her.
Yeah,
seriously.
I do want to mention something though. This is from a fellow academic, because for those of you that don't know, Rachel is a PhD. She's 36 and she's a teacher at one of the universities here. And this fellow academic, Professor Megan Davis, hit out at her and claimed her chief objective in going to Paris was for subsidized academic study. Getting 0 points on purpose in 3 rounds for an academic study subsidized by the taxpayer, both at the university and the Olympic level, isn't funny and isn't having a go, Professor Davis said on social media. It's disrespectful to other competitors. Now, this is.
But is that even true?
But this is a view of a lot of people, because she did do a paper she does have a PhD on cultural.
But why would you embarrass yourself? Why would you deliberately go out to be bad? Like who does that?
Well, it'd be like I don't think she went out there to deliberately be bad. I think probably what happened, because there was one post where they said, where the guy said to win at the oceanic competition, she was a lot better. And so she must have decided that the kangaroo hop and all these things was a good idea, and it was creative, and no one told her otherwise. No one, you were talking about this earlier about how, you surround your people that tell you that.
Well, confirmation bias, I think the trap that so many of us fall into, and I've had it happen to me, and I've seen it happen to other friends. People tell you that they think your business idea, your book, your new venture, your podcast, they'll tell you it's amazing, you're amazing, because they just want to keep being your friend.
That's exactly right. So the point is, this is why I love coming on here and doing Headspace Havoc, because we hash this out for a little bit, and I'll never talk about her again. It's kind of, I got it out of my head. Off you go. There you go. That's it. And it kind of went with what we were talking about the last time. Haven't spoken about it again. I just want to get it off my chest and just say, let's give the Jess Fox and her sister and all those Olympics, stars that have worked all their lives to get where they are and how they did. And I just think this took
That's
away.
a function of the sport. I mean, I think there's a whole bunch of issues with the Olympics, and I'm only starting to learn about it because some of the issues that have come up, and don't even get started on women's boxing. But it seems to be that each of the individual sports themselves have different standards. So with swimming, for example, Australian swimmers, they have to be amongst the elite before they even are allowed anywhere near the Olympics or in a pool. So some of the people that were in the Olympics from other countries were way worse than people that in Australia missed out on going to the Olympics. So the sport governed the entry requirements, and that's kind of what happened a little bit with boxing. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But this is what seems to have happened with the breakdancing. It's Australian breakdancing community maybe is not as organised as the Australian swimming community.
Well, let's just say people listening, breakdancing isn't our sport, okay?
Let's stick to swimming. Let's stick to swimming.
And say good on all this, especially those female swimmers that did such a great job. So we're just not really good at breakdancing. Now, the second thing that I really wanted to talk about that's really been bugging the hell out of me is I wish people would stop telling me what my opinion is. You know, there's a thing called freedom of speech, and I actually feel like our freedom of speech is being taken away. That, you know, I feel like that if you don't align with what others believe, especially online, then there's going to be people who want to shut you down. And if you don't, and if your views don't match theirs, then all of a sudden your post is labeled hate speech, and you're accused of either one of the, as I call the ism, the ist, or the phobias are going to be attached to what you just said. And the case in point is what just happened in the last day or two to a lady by the name of Rachel Wong, who is the CEO of Women's Forum Australia. And LinkedIn suspended her account because she posted a story about the Olympic boxer who allegedly tested XY with the International Boxing Association and was allowed to compete. Now, she linked that story with safe spaces for women, and it was respectfully done. She was just creating dialogue about it, right? And they immediately suspended her account as hate speech. And they had hate speech written on the thing and the whole thing.
Really? Well, I've not caught up with this one.
Oh my God. Well, there was an uproar, a real uproar on LinkedIn, and it was even mentioned in our parliament. So it was actually brought up in parliament, and she's now been reinstated. But my point is that there should always be a conversation. If someone doesn't agree, then talk about why you don't agree and give the because really I did get to read what she put on there, and there was nothing in there hateful. It was mainly just bringing up, this is the situation, this is what people are talking about, how are we going to do that? And that kind of goes on to
but we don't want to listen to other people's perspective because we're so wedded to our own.
I'm telling you, if people don't arc up, and luckily she had a lot of people who supported her and, you know, complained to LinkedIn and everything. If people don't arc up, everything we say, if someone doesn't like it, is going to be knocked down. And, you know, freedom of speech is just what it is. Freedom, it's not hate speech just because you don't agree with someone else.
This may be a great time to bring in our special guest today, Elizabeth Best. Elizabeth has been on our show before. She's the co-host of Ghosts of Boyfriends Past, a fantastic podcast, and we love our conversations with Elizabeth. So this is what's been doing our head in this week, and we've got something else we want to talk to you about because we know there's something doing your head in. But what do you make of everything we've just been talking about? You've been kind of sitting on the sidelines, listening, and we know this has been all over the media. These things have been all over the media. What's your perspective?
I guess in terms of the freedom of speech thing, it's so difficult because we've got a whole bunch of people all claiming that their freedom of speech is being suppressed at the moment from all kinds. And sometimes the people who are saying their speech is being repressed are actually the loudest people in the room. So I think it's really difficult. And I think that we do have the right to our own opinion, but I think that because of the types of people that are actually using the freedom of speech to be hateful. People are being very quick to jump on anything that could be perceived as hateful by anyone. So I think the people who are actually abusing it are ruining it for other people to be able to share their opinion in an open and honest discourse, because the internet is full of hate. And so
Correct.
I think when there's all sorts of implications and lawsuits as to whether the publisher is responsible, so whether places like LinkedIn or Meta are responsible for the things that are published on their platform, they're going to be a lot quicker to jump on stuff that perhaps isn't hate speech, just in case it becomes so.
Yeah, I've seen that happen to somebody I know who runs a small political party in Australia, and they had in those days it was still Facebook page. They had a Facebook page, and they weren't moderating the content. And somebody made something that the then GM thought was slanderous. So the then GM sued this head of this political party, and it cost her a lot of money because she was being deemed to be the publisher and it wasn't Facebook. Facebook was just the platform, and it was still her responsibility to moderate and to take anything off that was.
So I think people are overreacting because there is such hate out there at the moment. I think people are having knee-jerk reactions to anything that's on a controversial issue to try and keep themselves, because the laws with who the publisher is are still muddy. They're not defined. Yeah. So as much as I think LinkedIn probably did the wrong thing by suspending this woman, I feel like also they're probably trying to err on the side of caution while the laws against this kind of thing are so muddy.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You kind of wonder, are we losing our resilience in that, again, what is, there is a definition between what is hate. It's hate, obviously, is calling someone, to me, a bad name or something that's factually not correct. And that could incite violence. But, when it's just a different of opinion, I just think we're just getting so weak on not being able to have an open conversation. I was saying to Christina earlier that, there's, I was annoyed by the fact that why is it that people, just seems like there are just a lot of people following people these days or organizations just because of their gender or their party, and they're not doing their fact checking. And then you see someone who's interviewing somebody on a university campus or something, and they say, "Oh, who are you going to vote for this year?" And they say, "Oh, I'm going to vote for XYZ. They're just fabulous." Well, why are they fabulous? What's their policy? And they don't know. They don't know. They can't tell you their achievements, their policies, nothing. And they can't even tell you the policies or the issues for the person they don't like either.
Well, it's actually very difficult to fact check as well, because there's so many lies. There's so much misinformation. I'm in the micromobility scooter industry, and there's been a big media storm because scooters have been pulled off the streets of Melbourne. And I read the press, and the press is factually wrong. They're claiming a whole bunch of things that are just outright incorrect, and they're being claimed as fact. And now the average consumer, they don't know. They're just hearing the shitstorm of noise, but none of it's based on fact. So it's really difficult to discern the truth from fiction unless you actually spend the time, have an open mind, and actually go and investigate for yourself. But most of us don't have the time or energy or the care factor to do that, unfortunately.
You got to do it when it's important to you, like when it affects you personally. I think that's when you really got to check the facts out, and not just one or two. You've got to go into a lot of detail. I always say it's kind of like when I was doing recruiting, checking references and checking. You can't just do one reference. You got to do a lot of them, because one might say something wonderful and three others might say something terrible. And it's a little bit of an investigation. Unfortunately, it's going to get harder and harder for all of us, because with AI and things like that, you can't even, your eyes can almost deceive you, because
They do, and that's the whole part of AI, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So, Elizabeth, what's doing your head in?
Look, I have been going through IVF for the last probably about 2 years through this process. And what is doing my head in is the way that women are treated in the medical healthcare system in Australia at the moment. And obviously, it's broader than Australia. But this is my personal opinion, and it's a little something that I'm liking, calling the gender pain gap.
Love
Most
that.
because so in my IVF process and trying to conceive, I want to preface this by saying that my periods have been incredibly painful to the point where sometimes, during my teens, my legs would decide not to work.
Oh, wow.
And I was throwing up, fetal position. And I would go to the doctor and I would say, this is what's happening. And they'd say, both female and male doctors, let me point out, that's just sometimes people have very heavy periods. That's just part of being a woman. Take a few more of this painkiller or that painkiller or get on the pill.
Hormone imbalance, or, when you have your first child, it'll go away.
Yeah, not even, the thing is, a hormone imbalance wasn't even something that was suggested to me until my late 30s, right? So when I was 32, so after complaining about this issue for probably about 20 years, right? When I was 32, I got diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, and it was only because I was trying to conceive. All of the symptoms that I had been complaining about for years, and I had gone to multiple doctors. I was saying, I am having trouble losing weight. I am having trouble with my periods being excessively painful. I can feel a pain in my right ovary. Oh, that's just ovulation. You just don't know what ovulation feels like. Okay. So at that age, I was discovered I had polycystic ovaries, and I was put on a medication that helped with insulin resistance, and it helped me drop weight almost instantly. But the big one was that when I still wasn't conceiving, my doctor said to me, okay, well, we're going to give you this medication to help. Now, if you are diagnosed with endometriosis, it's $30. And if you are not diagnosed with endometriosis, it's $300 per month. So do you want to go and see if maybe you might have endo to save a bit of money? So I went, well, look, sure. Like, the operation for endo was about $1,200 out of pocket. So I would have been paying about $1,200 for the meds or $1,200 to get a diagnosis. So I went through that diagnosis, and I had a laparoscopy, and I was riddled with endometriosis.
Wow.
I had 4 endometriomas on one of my ovaries. So they're like little tumors on my ovary. I had it all around the fallopian tubes. So I had all of that excised. And basically, I had been in pain since I was 13 years old, and I have had endo my entire life. And the only time anybody bothered to actually investigate this was when I was trying to have a baby.
Wow.
Because if it affects fertility, everyone's all up in arms. But if someone's in pain, apparently it's a normal part of being a woman, and nobody cares.
And yeah, that's really interesting when I hear you say that. It's kind of similar with other kind of illnesses that are pain related that no one can find a cause of, and people go, oh, it's all in your head. It's all in your head.
Mm-hmm. And
you would have gone to multiple doctors. You would have shot this because, like, you're an intelligent woman, right? You don't take no for an answer. So you would have gone to multiple people for a second, third, fourth consult.
Even know that endometriosis was a thing until about 28, and I had gone to probably 13 or 14 different doctors saying ibuprofen is not enough. They'd be like, okay, maybe naproxen then, which is a slightly higher dosage of like the anti-inflammatories. No one even suggested, let's explore to find this out. They're like, it's just period pain. You need to deal with it. Having a baby might cure your period pain, or going on the pill. But the thing that pissed me off about the pill thing is that I went to a hormone summit because I was trying to conceive and I wanted to learn all about my body. And I learned more in this 1 hour summit than I have in my entire life about my own body.
Wow.
But what she said to the audience, her name was Dr. Libby. I'll have to find her last name so you can put it in the show notes, but she's a renowned hormone specialist and doctor. And she said, look, obviously, if you are having sex when you are, a teenager, 16 or whatever, go on the pill. But she said, when you get your first period, it takes 5 years for your hormone levels to level out to what they're going to be in adulthood.
Wow.
So if you go on the pill before those 5 years are up, your body does not learn how to do the proper hormone processes naturally. So that's why people are coming to her in their 30s and, I have trouble conceiving, because basically when you are on the pill that early, and I am advocating for the pill if you are having sexual activity, that's not me. But a lot of doctors will be like, oh, you're a moody teenager, go on the pill. Oh, your period pain hurts, go on the pill.
Or you've got acne. I know I was 16. I hadn't had my first period. I was a late bloomer. I had acne, and they went, if you just go on the pill, it was called the Diane 50 or whatever it was. I'm trying to remember the name of it. But they were recommending that to young girls, and probably, I don't know, maybe boys as well, but to manage acne. And now I look back and I go, that's really messed my hormones up.
That's the thing that causes Libby was saying that Dr. Libby was saying this causes hormonal imbalances later in life that are never usually diagnosed until women are trying to conceive and are having trouble.
Wow.
But it can cause weight gain problems. It can cause insulin resistance problems. It can cause all sorts of problems. And we don't know this about our own bodies. And like, for example, even I was looking at a study, let me find out exactly where. So the Oregon Health and Science University only tested period products with menstrual blood for the first time in 2023. They've been tested with previously.
So we're talking about tampons, and we're talking about all those sorts of things that women insert into their bodies.
Yep. So the absorbency until literally a year ago had never been measured with actual blood. They'd been using saline, they'd been using viscous fluid, they'd been using all kinds of things.
So we're okay. We're okay to be tested on without proper testing.
Yep. And then not only that, so this is why this is doing my head in.
I find that horrific. I find that there are so many other tests for everything else. We require everything else to be tested. I'm working in some other areas around heavy testing with electrical stuff and batteries, and the tests that are required are phenomenal. And what we're not even testing the products properly with real life scenarios.
Like, it absorbs viscous fluid, therefore blood should be fine, right? And then again, a university in UC Berkeley, now when was this? This was published July 3rd this year. It was the first study to measure toxic metals in tampons, showed that arsenic, lead, and other contaminants are in certain brands of tampons, because again, that wasn't tested until the last couple of years.
That is horrific. I'm horrified.
Yeah. So there's been hilarious memes about troubling things going around on TikTok, where there's so many sketches of people being like, hey, I'm having all this pain. And the doctor's like, okay, sweetie, have you tried losing some weight? Okay, we'll put you on a diet, lose some weight, and all those will clear up. And it's just not good enough that most test subjects for different types of things are men. They always have been. And so all of these things that are so intrinsic to women, even with the, your daily calorific intake, when you're looking online and, looking at how many calories you should be consuming per day, that's based on men's bodies.
Yeah, but didn't they test, so they didn't do any of that kind of testing when toxic shock syndrome was, when they were talking about toxic shock syndrome all the time? That was
there were some women that were wearing tampons for way too long, longer than they should have, and they were becoming unwell as a result.
And they were,
No, So I can send you this. I'll send you the link to this University of Berkeley study so that we've got it all for the show notes and people can read about it themselves. But they've been present in, so it says researchers evaluated levels of 16 metals: arsenic, barium, calcium, cadmium, cobalt, chromium, copper, iron, manganese, mercury, nickel, lead, selenium, vanadium, and zinc in 30 tampons from 14 different brands.
Wow.
And they found quite a high concentration in a lot of different brands because I don't know.
Well, and because this is the thing, because I don't know what's the role that those chemicals have, and I know the consequence of a lot of those chemicals. They cause you pain, nerve pain, unwellness, hair loss. Your skin deteriorates, your fingernails deteriorate. I've got friends that have been quite unwell from metal poisonings.
And also, they say in the study that obviously the vagina increases the exposure to it than it would be from the outside. The study goes on to say that for the moment, it is unclear if the metals detected by this study are contributing to any negative health effects. But how messed up is that, though?
But how did it even happen in the first place? It kind of feels, I could go all conspiracy theory on this quite quickly.
I know, which is why I've made sure that I'm only using studies directly from the universities that have discovered this thing. So this is, again, what we've got to do when we're fact-checking in this day and age. So I've gone straight to the articles from the academics that are conducting these studies.
Yeah.
Rather than any news sites, and I'm happy to
the pharmaceutical companies.
Yeah.
And the pharmaceutical companies will be using doctors. And then say, so, that's where, a lot of conspiracy theories obviously come to say, okay, well, are these doctors only promoting what the pharmaceutical companies have told them based on their research? Are they doing what they think is the right thing because that's what they've been told? Where does the buck stop?
Yeah, exactly.
So interestingly, in other industries, and this is the industry I'm working in at the moment, if you've got a product and you want to bring it into a country, you take responsibility as the importer. And there are now, I won't go into too many details, but there are now all these standards, for example. And to get a certification, you actually need to get it lab tested. You need to get it independently verified that you've had it independently lab tested by a recognized lab. And then to get the certification on it, you need a certification body to make sure everything's kosher and, chain of custody and all that kind of stuff. That's in electrical world, lithium ion battery and electrical world. And we're not doing it on human bodies. We're not
No, and this is the thing, throughout the whole process of trying to get pregnant, the number of times that I've been told we don't know the effects because we've never really studied that on things. Now I understand when it comes to being pregnant that nobody wants to sign up to see what a particular drug is going to do to them while they're pregnant, because that's horrible and horrific. So those, I think, are understandable that we haven't
thalidomide, and there've been too many disasters.
So it's just better to not. But things like having only tested menstrual products with blood in the last couple of years blew my mind, absolutely blew my mind.
I'm still in shock.
About hormone imbalances and how so many children are put on the pill, not because they want to protect their bodies from getting pregnant, but for things like acne and mood swings, which is actually affecting their hormones later in life, and they won't know the real cost of that until later. And having no doctor even consider to test me for endometriosis, and also I found out that I also have adenomyosis, which is a cousin of endo, which is when your uterine lining is too thick. And they're usually first cousins, and that also can cause particularly painful periods as well. And you can only test for that if you have an MRI, which is quite expensive. But again, no one suggested this to me. I'm now 30-something.
Yeah, don't go there.
Late 30s. And nobody suggested any of these things to me until I was trying to have a baby, even though I was complaining of excruciating pain for 20 years.
And my question is why? Why? And I know you're not the first. I've heard there's been other women that have had very similar story to yours. I just wonder what's being done about it. Why isn't the medical profession looking at this? Why aren't they researching it? Why aren't they more aware? I mean, we've been talking about hormones and all sorts of things from a medical perspective for a long time. Why has this not come up? Why is this Dr. Libby the first person to talk about it?
Because of the pharmaceutical companies. Because where the power is and where the control is, it's kind of like, why is everybody using Ozempic as a weight loss when it's supposed to be for diabetes and things like that? It's hard to get here in Australia because they've run out, because the people who need it can't get it. Because as a result of that drug, evidently, from what I understand, I'm not an expert on this, that people started losing weight. And then doctor starts prescribing it or giving for a weight loss thing, not for the original diabetes. And so the point with the pill, they found out that it cleared your face. So they started giving it to people as to clear your face. And they think, oh, that's a good way. And then 20 years later, you might find out, oh, yeah, well, that's good. I'm skinny, but I've got no hair.
Yeah, well, it's like HRT for some women that have gone on to HRT to manage their menopause. They've found there's a higher incidence of breast cancer, depending on what you're using and those sorts. So there's consequences to most things, aren't there?
You know what I noticed when I was just recently in the States? When you watch TV and there's pharmaceutical ads, like that's their ad.
They're allowed to in the US, aren't they?
They're allowed. So take this drug and blah, blah, blah. And you see sunshine and rainbows and life is good. And then the ad ends. And then for 5 minutes, it could cause this. It could cause blindness. It could cause hair loss. It could cause weight gain. Everything you wouldn't want happening.
While the pictures of everyone are like happy days, playing with family, hugging your kids. Well, that could kill you.
Yeah. Exactly right. And you go, oh my God. And my husband and I go, why would anybody take that? If those are the side effects, even if there's a little 1% chance, why would you take that?
But you kind of start to unravel, start to think about unraveling the whole tampon story with all the chemicals that are in it. You kind of go, well, why is that? Because if they kill off, go conspiracy, if they kill off all the women, then they've got no one to sell it to. Or was that the conspiracy theory is to, like, it doesn't make like this.
Well, again, it's the fact that they found them, but they're not sure what the effect is yet. And that in itself is pretty dire, that, they don't know, like, it's not necessarily killing us, but like what other...
It'll make people sick, let me tell you.
Yeah. And this, I want to stress, it was in 14 different brands. This does not mean that all tampons are toxic. And I'm not trying to start conspiracy theories here about everything's got metals or anything like that. Yeah. Specific university study, but the fact that is even happening, I've just heard from so many doctors through the process that they haven't really studied the female body for a lot of things. They just use male test subjects, and I think that's being corrected. But like,
what's wrong with our training? What's wrong with our universities? What's wrong with our ongoing education requirements? Because medicine and medical training is evolving just like anything. We're learning new things all the time. What's happening with that training to educate the doctors of today around all these issues?
But also what's happening now that we know these things to educate young women on their own bodies. I didn't find out how my own body worked as a woman until I was in my 30s and trying to get pregnant. And then I learned all about hormone imbalances, and I learned about endo, and I learned about, I didn't know, like, and this is one of the reasons I've been so open about my IVF journey, is because I tell a lot of my friends about different things that happen in the journey and, when things happen and how they happen, and their mouths drop open because they don't even know how their own body works.
Yeah. And all the hormones, because there's a huge amount of pressure on your body and a fluctuation in hormones because they're heightening your hormones to help everything work.
Exactly. When I was your age, I never even heard that word.
Exactly.
We didn't even know. We knew nothing about that at all. So it's kind of almost a new thing in the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah, they teach you, basic sex ed, sperm meets egg, egg goes in womb, womb has baby. But what they don't teach you is there's like a 48-hour window when you can get pregnant, right? At a stretch. And that even if all of the conditions are right, it's still not 100% chance that it's going to work. Even if the sperm is perfect, the egg is perfect, you time it perfectly. There's so many variations, there's so many fluctuations. And I just urge women or people who identify as women to go out and do the research. Everybody go out and research what your own body does, because
male and female should do that.
Yeah, or everyone should be knowing how their hormones work, how their emotions work, how their blood system works, because how can we identify if something's wrong and advocate for ourselves in a medical setting when everybody's telling us that things are fine, when we don't know how our bodies work?
So true. And you've touched on another kind of tangent around this. I don't think people have a language for things. So Judith and I were talking about this, is people will go to the doctor, and I can look at some people that I know that are very close to me, and the doctor says, what's wrong? And they go, they can't actually even articulate where the pain is. And even when I've asked this particular person, where's the pain, is it on the inside or the outside, they go, I don't know. So they're not even connected to their own bodies. They can't tell you whether it feels like the pain is on the surface or it feels like the pain is underneath, or is the pain a muscle, is the pain, they have no language for it, which says to me they're not connected to their body at all.
Exactly. I mean, I know my doctor, female, and she said people will always underplay what their pain is or where it is, and she actually said especially the males will go, no, I'm okay. And then she'll have to say, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you do? It has to then keep asking questions and keep probing, and we'll downplay it or wait till the last minute to go and do. Something needs to be, Christine and I were talking about, it's brilliant now, we think, that they send the packets to people who are 50 and over.
You wouldn't know about that yet.
You wouldn't know about that. Every 2 years you get a little box to
here's your poo bag. Happy birthday.
I know about that, because I've actually, this is the thing that annoys me as well, is that I had a friend of mine's wife died at the age of 29 from bowel cancer, right? And they still say, but it's an old person's disease, so you don't need to do your due diligence. But you absolutely 100% should be testing earlier, because it is different types of cancers are killing younger and younger people these days. I've been having full mammograms and MRIs since I was 26, because my family has a very strong history of breast cancer, and the Queensland government at least is fantastic, where if you've got 2 close familial members, they will pay for you to join the breast cancer family clinic, and they will pay for you to do mammograms and MRIs every year to see if you're early. So that's one good thing. Thank you, Queensland Health. But good. Again, I think it's wonderful that they send the kits out to people who are over 50, but I also think, again, you got to be vigilant when you're younger, because these things aren't just old, killing.
Yeah. Listen to your body. I guess listen to your body. If things don't appear right, or if things change, if there's signs of blood or pain that's not normally there, question it.
Well, the most cost, because our economy all over the world is not good right now, and people are struggling. They're not being able to make their bills. Their mortgages are too high. So when they think, they see a spot on their back or somewhere, and they think, if I go to the doctor, it's going to cost me $200-300. I don't have insurance, that kind of thing. There's not enough emphasis on preventative issues. And if they would just put more time and effort on, let's prevent skin cancer before it happens, because that will be and then it all comes, I always bring it right back. Well, maybe they don't want to prevent it because the cost of the pharmaceutical, I keep going. People, if they're too healthy, then it's corporate profits fall. But, it's one of my biggest pet peeves, thinking, why wouldn't you have free skin checks and people being able to go to and get their just annual well-being check? Why wouldn't the government do that? Because long term, it would prevent so many issues. save money, but there is a country that does that, and I'm trying to remember which one it was. It's a small country that does that, and they have a very low rate of issues.
Probably like Sweden or Norway.
I was going to say it's probably Finland. They're really good with all kinds of stuff like that.
It's even a smaller country than that. It's like I can't think of what one. Yeah, I can't. It's like a Ghana or Komodo, something like that. I can't remember. My husband keeps talking about it because I think it might be one of the 100s. You know how the blue zones or whatever, where people live to 100. There's more people that live to 100. I think it's one of those countries, which.
But I think this all like stems from if we were educated better, not just in science and biology and how human bodies work, because again, biology that they teach in high school is this is stuff we learned on male bodies, but classes where they teach you what things should feel like and how a normal body feels and how to not just if you want to go into STEM, but if you want to live as a human being, here's what you should know about your body and how it works and the internals.
Could be one of the first things. The schools have lost the plot. They're too busy with other stuff rather than focusing on, biology, math, science, English.
Teach me how to do my taxes and teach me what my body's meant to feel.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. How many kids know how to balance a budget? It's like, but on that note, we're coming to time, and God, we could talk about this. And I think a good message to everybody here is that, really pay attention to your body and go out and get checks. Make sure that you communicate to your doctor exactly what's wrong with you. And I think there's been a lot of good lessons here. Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Elizabeth. And if there are any online communities around this, I'm sure there are some. If you know of any, please let us know, and we'll put them in the show notes as well, because I think this is an important issue, and we need to be.
And if anybody is listening to this and wants to correct me or point me in the right direction of different things that are useful resources for stuff like this, or tell us what research is happening now that people are complaining, that'd be great to know as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we always say that this is an educational show. Educate us, because we don't know it all. We don't even know half of it. But
exactly.
We're just everyday people with an opinion. And if we're saying something that's not factually right, or you've got another view, please let us know, because we won't learn, we won't grow if you don't. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
For more information about Every Step and our guests, head to everysteppodcast.com. To be notified of new podcasts, please subscribe via your favourite listening platform. And of course, follow us on social media and direct message us to share your ideas about guests or topics.